Hello, so today I want to talk a little bit more about focusing on what you can control. And I've definitely addressed this topic and talked about it in the past, but I also wanted to dive a little bit further into it and kind of help with an acronym and kind of a phrase that I've started to use with my clients to help remember, those things that you can control, especially in it right now. There's a lot of uncertainty for a lot of athletes. A lot of things are changing constantly. Events getting postponed or canceled, or trainings getting canceled just because of COVID. But even without COVID, being able to focus on what you can control is such an important component as an athlete. It's one of the few things that you on the mental side really do have. I don't even say on the mental side, but overall within your performance have control over certain elements. But obviously a lot of athletes and all the athletes that I work with, find themselves focusing on the things that they can't control, and it leads to frustration, it leads to anger, it leads to being distracted, and therefore it naturally impacts their performance. And so I've started to use this acronym BEAST and created this BEAST mentality within my programs with athletes to help them to remember those things that they can control, because this acronym BEAST really emphasizes the 5 things that you have control over as an athlete, and everything else outside of that, there is an element that you cannot control. And so when we look at these things, which I'm going to do in a second, these are things that you can really just focus on. And everything that I think I've really worked on within the field of sports psychology with clients falls under one of these 5 things. And that's really the important thing, because that's what's going to help you to perform at your best. So let's look at this acronym. So the B stands for behaviors. You have control over your behaviors. This is from things such as, are you icing in the manner in which you need to, if you need to ice, or rolling, or stretching, or getting body work? Are you, eating appropriately? What are the routines that you're doing? What are those behaviors and actions that you are doing that you need to be able to do in order to perform at your very best? And I find behaviors to be a very important one, because our behaviors obviously, a lot of the time I should say, are dictated by how we're feeling or how we're performing. And we really want to separate, because you may not feel your best, you may not have been performing at your best, but if you can stick to certain behaviors that just really are necessary for your highest level of performance, you have a better ability to not let yourself go down the rabbit hole too far in terms of maybe how you feel or performing, and to bring yourself back a lot quicker to that level of performance that you need to have for yourself. And I've addressed this in other videos, what's known as kind of optimal performance behaviors, where there's certain things that you have to do to set yourself up both physically and mentally to perform at your best. And these behaviors are not just things that you do within your performance or around your performance, but these are things that you do every single day. Sleeping is a behavior, right? What are those things that you have to do to be at your very best? So as I said, those are very, very important. One, knowing exactly what they are is important. And I tell my athletes all the time to write them out, because as humans, we tend to, as much as we think we remember them all, and they're in our head, so we automatically will do them. It's important to write them out and to reflect on them on a pretty consistent basis to make sure we are sticking to those behaviors and not slipping away from them. And I'll give you for an example. So meditation is definitely a behavior and a thing that a lot of athletes that I work with do. And a lot of the time when we need meditation the most, we don't end up doing it because maybe we're feeling anxious or we're feeling nervous. And those feelings, the last thing we want to do is meditate, even though the meditation would be the most beneficial in that moment. And so what can happen is then we don't meditate one day, and then that leads into a second day, and then a third day, and a fourth day, and etc. And that happens with a lot of other behaviors, that when we don't feel we need them, or we need them the most, but our emotions are kind of taking control of us, we end up not doing them. And so very, very important to always stick to those behaviors as much as possible, regardless of what's going on around you. The E in the acronym stands for effort, and this is obviously in one sense self-explanatory. It's just about giving 100% of your effort in everything that you do. But you have to understand, obviously, giving your best, giving 100% of your effort is going to look different each and every single day. Some days you will have more energy, and so it will look a little bit different than other days. Or if you're in a training session, the energy you have to give and the effort you have to give, at the beginning is going to be a little bit different than at the end. But are you giving 100% of what you have to give? That's really the key. Are you always giving everything that you have, regardless of what that encompasses or looks like? And obviously we're looking at not just within your performance in that area, but also in a number of other things. Are you giving everything that you have to your recovery, to your mental game? Are you giving everything you have to meditating, if that's something that you do, to journaling, if that's something that you do? So you got to understand it's not just about what's happening within that competitive environment, but also in other facets that obviously contribute to what is going to happen in that competitive environment. Obviously, the next acronym, A, stands for attitude. And again, this is very controllable. Everything else can get taken away from you, but you still have a choice of the attitude that you bring to a situation. And I'm not talking about just, I have a good attitude or a bad attitude, or I'm going to choose to be positive in this moment. It's more of understanding, like, what is the attitude that you need to perform at your very best? What mentality do you need to have here? What mentality do you need to have to overcome mistakes or overcome the uncertainty or the constant change that is happening in this, day and age with COVID? What's the mentality you're going to have if you're not going to have the playing time that you want? And you can just sit there and say, I'm going to have a positive attitude, but to be honest, a lot of the time that doesn't always equate to helping you be at your very best. You can sit there and keep telling yourself, oh, I'm good, I'm positive. But a lot of the time I see people who say that, but then I hear coaches saying something else. So you really have to sit there and really look at what is that attitude in terms of how you want to enter into something. And a lot of the time it comes down to finding the meaning in something that you are doing, finding the meaning and maybe not getting as much, playing time as you want, finding the meaning in something that is postponed or canceled, an event, and how can you find meaning in the thing that you're now going to do in lieu of that thing that got postponed or canceled. So attitude, very, very important. The S is something that in one sense governs all the other ones and helps the other ones. And the more you understand these other components, the more this one, which is self-awareness, grows. And the self-awareness is, obviously something that we want. We need a level of self-awareness to be able to dictate and change and to create the attitude or to make changes and to implement the right strategy or tool at the right moment in time. So it's not something we necessarily develop in the moment, but it's something that we need to have, and we can always get better with our self-awareness. And then the T is our thoughts. So obviously we have control, as hard as it may seem at times, we have control of where our thoughts are. Our thoughts, in the past, in the present, in the future, are they more positive, neutral, or negative? Where are our focus and where are those thoughts going to be? And that's something we have control over. So there you have it. Those are the things that you have full control over. And I definitely highly encourage you to look at those things and to make sure you are focused on those 5 things on the mental side. And obviously a lot of things on the mental side gets encompassed within all of those 5 different things.